All right, so ladies and gentlemen, here is your practice test. I'll try to go through it quickly for you so we can see what we need to do. I'll give you some little hints here on certain other things too that might help you. So the first one says solve 2x squared plus 2v squared plus 4v equals 6 by factoring. So remember, what you want to do is when you're factoring, you want to set everything on one side, set it equal to 0. So you'll get 2v squared plus 4v. I'm going to bring that 6 over to this side. So we'll get a minus 6 is equal to 0. Remember, I said if you can factor something out, factor it out. And if you notice, we should be able to take out a 2. So if I take out a 2, I'm going to have v squared plus 2v minus 3 is equal to 0. Remember then, if I divide both sides by 2, right, that means the whole thing, those are going to go away, and 0 divided by 2 is 0. So I can go ahead and say that v squared plus 2v minus 3 is equal to 0. Now we're just going to do what I've showed you a couple of times. I'll keep showing you. So remember, if I have a coefficient of 1, which I do, in front of the v squared, I can put a v and I can put a v. Remember, I told you if that one right there is a negative, automatically one's a positive, one's a negative. All right, and then now you just think to yourself, what are factors of 3? Well, it's just 3 and 1. That will give me a positive 2. So if I look at that, I'll have a plus 3. I'll have a minus 1. All right, so remember, by the zero product property, we can say that v plus 3 is equal to 0, or v minus 1 is equal to 0, and you solve those are your answers. So I'll get v is equal to negative 3, or v is equal to positive 1. So our answers here would be negative 3 and 1. All right. Number 2. Solve 6x squared plus 125 is equal to x squared using square roots. So again, on ones like this, ladies and gentlemen, kind of look and see if there's not an x term, it's easier to use the square roots. So I'm going to move this x squared over to the other side. It's positive there, so now we know it's going to become negative. So now I can say that 5x squared plus 125 is equal to 0. All right, looks like I can factor out a 5. So 5x squared in parentheses plus 25 is equal to 0. Again, I can divide both sides by 5. I'll get that x squared plus 25 is equal to 0. I'm going to take x squared and try to solve it. So I have to take the number over to the other side. It becomes negative. Now remember, we would say x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 25. So we know that negative there would give us an I, but we don't have any answer that has an I. So remember, this was on the very first section. And so on that one, all we could say was no real solution. All right. Number 3, find the zeros of f of x is equal to x squared minus 3x minus 10. So again, I'm going to set that equal to 0. And then I'm going to factor again. The coefficient in front of the x squared is 1. So I'm going to put an x here. I'm going to put an x here. Again, that one's negative. So if it's negative, remember, one's positive, one's negative. If it was positive, we'd look at the second term. We're going to get one like that here shortly. So again, you're going to ask yourself, what are factors of 10 that would give me a negative 3? So you would tell me it'd be minus 5 plus 3. plus 2, sorry, plus 2. All right, so again, by the zero product property, we can say that x plus 2 is equal to 0. Solve that, I'll get x is equal to negative 2. X minus 5 is equal to 0. Solve that. Notice I'm starting to solve it in my head. Is a positive 5. So my answers are, again, negative 2 and 5. I'm sure it doesn't matter which order you put those in. All right. Number 4, find the square root of negative 90. So again, here's a thing to remember. Whenever I have a negative under the radical, remember that became the square root of negative 1. And we know that the square root of negative 1 is equal to I. All right? So knowing that, ladies and gentlemen, just look what we just did. We just got rid of this answer, this answer, this answer, and this answer, because we know it has to have an I in it. So we know that we can break that down as to I, and then I have 90 is 9 times 10. So again, we're trying to break it down so that we can see a nice number. Remember, the square root of 9 is 3. And remember, I told you, and remember this because it will mark it wrong. If you accidentally put the I behind the square root of 10, it's going to think that the I is under the radical, and it will mark it wrong. All right? So remember, my thing to you was to put the I in between the whole number. If you just have a whole number, it's always after it. But if you have a radical, it has to be in front of it. If you have both of them, it goes in between them. So it has to be that answer there. Number 5, find the zeros of g of x is equal to 2x squared plus 32. So 2x squared plus 32 is equal to 0. Let's try it a different way. Let's just go ahead and put the 32 on the other side already. I can still divide by 2, so x squared is equal to negative 16. So again, x is equal to, again, we're going to say plus or minus the square root of negative 16. Again, a negative under the radical is going to give us an I. So that tells us we're going to have plus or minus I, the square root of 16. The square root of 16 is 4. That's a whole number. So we're going to say it's plus or minus 4i. So on here, you're going to put in minus 4i, and you're going to put in 4i. Okay? Number 6 has, let's see, it wants us to use the quadratic formula. So remember, using the quadratic formula, we're going to have a is equal to 3, b is equal to negative 5, and c is equal to 8. We're going to do this a couple times, so I will go ahead and write down the formula for you the first time. So I'll get x is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac. All of that is under the radical sign. And it will be over 2 times a. Okay, so on this one here, again, I'm going to take the negative. My b was negative 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 5 squared minus 4 times 3 times 8. All of that over 2 times 3. Okay, so now we're going to go ahead and say, I'm going to go up here because I'm going to start running out of room. So I'll have 5 plus or minus, let's see, I'm going to tell you 25 minus 96. All of that over 6. So I'm going to have 5 plus or minus. Remember, you could have found the discriminant right away, but I want to just say, since I had 2 of them, you're going to either have 2 real solutions or you're going to have 2 imaginary solutions. So 25 minus 96 gives me a negative 71. Uh-oh. That should tell you we're going to have 2 imaginary solutions. All right. And then so we're going to write that. And remember, the negative's under the radical. So I'll have 5 plus or minus I root 71 over 6. So they are going to have you write it down exactly like that. So on one of them, your answer will be, and I'll put it in red here so you can see it. One of them will be 5 plus I root 71 over 6. And the other one will be 5 minus I root 71 over 6. You have to put that because it didn't say round to the nearest whatever. All right. If it said round to the nearest 100th, then you would have known, you would have plugged that into your calculator. But it didn't tell you that. All right. So remember that part. Okay. Number 7, solve x squared minus 5x plus 6 is equal to 3x squared plus 4x by graphing. Round your answers to the nearest 100th if necessary. So, excuse me, on this one here, they want us to plug it into our graph. So the easiest thing to do is move everything over to one side. All right. So I noticed that the 3x squared is on the right-hand side. So I'm going to move the x squared over. When I move that over, it becomes negative. I'm going to move the 5x over. And when I do that, I'm going to get a positive. And then when I move the x or the 6 over, I'm going to get a negative, right? So on this one here, look at what I just did. So 3x minus x, 3x squared minus x squared is 2x squared. So I'll get 2x squared. I'll have plus 9x minus 6. And remember, since we're graphing it, we're going to have to put it set equal to y. Okay? So I'm going to, just for hurrying up sake here, I did, let me see. Yep, good, I can do that. I already put the 2 answers that have graphing on here. So the first one was here. All right, now you should get a parabola, of course, because it's x squared. And remember, we're trying to find the zeros. That is where it crosses the x-axis. So if I click on this one right here, it'll tell me what it is. All right, if I click on this one right here, it'll tell me what it is. Now use the correct rules of rounding, ladies and gentlemen, all right, because it's set to the nearest 100th. So that's the second decimal place, all right? So you have 0.5089, the 9 is greater than 5, so that makes the 8 a 9. And it makes the 0.589, that one is also a 9, all right? So remember that part there, ladies and gentlemen, because they marked you wrong last time. So on this one here, we're going to say that our x is equal to, what did we say, negative 5.89? Or is that 509? Excuse me, it's -509, right? My bad, let me go. Yeah, negative 5.09. Thank you for putting up with me. Negative 5.09. And then we had 0.59. So those are our answers. Okay. Number 8, again, we're going to solve by square roots. So again, let's go ahead and see what we need to do. I'm going to take negative 2x squared. This time I'll move that 23 over again. So when I move it over, it becomes negative. So I'll get negative 2x squared is equal to negative 16. All right. When I get negative 16, I'm going to divide through by negative 2. So that'll give me that x squared is equal to 8. So we know that x is going to be equal to plus or minus the square root of 8. Now, they're not going to accept that, ladies and gentlemen, because you can simplify that. Remember, the square root of 8, you can write down as the square root of 4 times the square root of 2. You know that the square root of 4 is the whole number 2. And you have this. Again, you have to simplify it. It's not saying round to the nearest number. All right? So remember, on this here, we're going to have still the plus or minus, the plus or minus. So they already have the plus or minus for us in this case. So watch exactly what they're asking you to do. So on this one here, all we have to do is put in 2 root 2. All right, let's see. Again, I'm just showing you all these other ways to do stuff. So I'm going to say 6x squared plus 18 is equal to 0. I can factor out a 6. So that'll give me x squared plus 3 is equal to 0. If I divide both sides by 6, I'll get x squared plus 3 is equal to 0. Now I can say that x squared is equal to negative 3. Now remember, I have x is equal to plus or minus, again, to get rid of a square root. A square, I square root it, right? So I have a negative 3. Oh, look again. Always look. If I have a negative under the radical, it now becomes an I. So my answer will be x is equal to plus or minus I square root of 3. Because again, we had a square root, so it goes in front of the square root. So on this one here, again, you would tell me negative I root 3 and I root 3. All right, number 10 is the one I just did in class, but I'll do it again for you. Remember, on this here, I said set it equal to 0 and factor it. So we can say that x and an x, and we have minus 15 and minus 2. So again, this one's negative. So there, one's positive, one's negative. And what are factors of 15 that give me negative 2? You would tell me again 5 and 3. So remember, that's telling us then that we're going to say x is equal to, by the 0 property, we're going to say that x is equal to negative 3, and we're going to say that x is equal to 5. So remember, I told you on this one here, since it's less than or equal to, we know that we have to fill in the circle. So we're going to make a circle at negative 3 and fill it in. We're going to make a circle at 5 and fill it in. And remember, so that means you're going to use this one. I kind of showed you how to do that, right? So we're going to use that one. And remember, I told you to draw a line in here and a line in here, and to choose a number in each one. So remember, I chose, and I think I can go down here. On the other one, I can't go down as far. So I said negative 6 here. And I'll just go ahead and extend that. And I said to do 0 here, and I used 6 here. All right. So remember, we plugged it in here. So we plugged it into x plus 3 times x minus 5. and we had -6 plus 3, and we had -6 minus 5. And again, now we're going to see if it's a true or false statement. So we have to know if it's less than or equal to 0. Well, -6 plus 3 is -3, and then I have -6 minus -6 minus 5, which is -11. Again, is that less than or equal to 0? We get 33 is less than or equal to 0. That is not a true statement, so that one is false. All right. We're going to do 0 now. So I'm going to take 0 minus 5 times 0 plus 3. Again, is that less than or equal to 0? 0 minus 5 is -5. 0 plus 3 is 3. Again, is that less than or equal to 0? Well, -5 times 3 is -15. And that is less than 0. So that one's the true statement. Again, I used 6. I told you I could have used, well, 6 is actually the easier one on that one. So on that one there, I have 6 plus 3. I have 6 minus 5. Again, our question is that less than or equal to 0? Well, 6 plus 3 is 9. 6 minus 5 is 1. Again, is that less than or equal to 0? Is 9 less than or equal to 0? You're going to tell me no. So that would mean that is false also. So I'm going to shade in between the two. So we're going to shade in right here. But remember, on this here, you moved it up there and put it on -3 or 5, and then you moved it with your mouse to the other one, and then it would have filled it in, and it actually put it up above. So hopefully that helped you out. Again, we're going to do another one like that for the next problem. So let's do another one. So I'm going to do the same thing here. So on this one here, I'm going to go up here so I don't run out of room. So I'm going to say x and x. And remember, I'm setting it equal to 0. Now remember this time, oh, this one's a plus. So remember, when it's a plus, you have to look at the next one here. All right? If that one's positive, they're both positive. If that one's negative, they're both negative. So I'm going to take x plus x plus. And then what are factors of 8 that add up to 9? Well, the only ones that work are 8 and 1. All right. So by the zero product property, x plus 8 is equal to 0. If I solve that, I get x is equal to -8. I get x is equal to -1. So those are our two. And again, look at this right here. Again, this one says less than or equal to. So we know that at -8 and at -1, we are going to fill in the circle. So again, you're going to use this one. Remember, the only other one really that you're going to use is either this one here, if it's in between, or a similar one like that, if we're going in the other direction where they're true, or if it's not equal to, you'll use those ones. All right. So I wish we would have had a different one here on each one, but I did do one in the notes for you that had it going the other way. So let's go ahead and do the same thing real quick here. So I'm going to state that on this one here, again, I'm going to plug in a number. I always like to plug in the one closest to it. So I'm going to plug in -9. I'm going to plug in, what did I choose on that one? I chose -2 just because it's right there. It's kind of easy. And of course, I'll always use 0 if I can. All right. So knowing that on this first one here, I'm going to have -9 plus 8. And I'm going to have -9 plus 1. Again, we're asking if that's less than or equal to 0. That'll give me -1. That'll give me -8. So that gives me 8. Is 8 less than or equal to 0? You're going to tell me no. So that one is false. The middle one, we have -2 plus 8. I have -2 plus 1. Is that less than or equal to 0? Let's see, -2 plus 8 is 6. -2 plus 1 is -1. Again, is that less than or equal to 0? You're going to get -6 is less than or equal to 0. So this one here is a true statement. I'm just going to go ahead and put it down here because I'm running out of room. In case you can't figure it out, it's probably there in the middle, but we're still going to finish it. Okay. And then the last side, the other side, 0 plus 8 is 8. 0 plus 1 is 1. And again, is that less than or equal to 0? And you'll tell me yes, that 8 is less than 0. And I'll say, of course it's not. I'm sorry I said that. It's not. All right. So remember, you're going to take that one and you're going to drop it at one of them and then pull it to the other one. And it'll be on the inside. Okay. If it's on the outside, you're just going to take it and you might have to pull it. I'm not sure. All right. Okay. We're almost halfway through. Well, yeah, through my problems. So, write y equals x squared minus 6x plus 4 in vertex form, then identify the vertex. So remember, on these ones here, I had you complete the square. Since it said y equals, remember what I had you do was I had you say y equals, and on this one here, I grouped the 6x squared and the minus 6x together, and then I told you to put a blank. All right? Then I have the plus 4, and remember, this one here is a plus, so the one, if it's on the same side, has to be a minus. So I'm going to put minus a blank there. All right? So then remember, I told you to have this. So what is half of -6? You're going to tell me it's -3. So remember, I halved it. And then I'm going to square it. What is -3 times -3? It's +9. And remember, since I have a +9 there, I have to put a -9 there. All right. So we just did this part right here. That's our perfect square trinomial x minus 3 squared. And then I have plus 4 minus 9, which is minus 5. And remember, that's y equals. So let's see. On our answer here, the vertex form, they already have the y equals. So you're going to tell me x minus 3 squared minus 5. You have to put that one in there. And then the vertex, remember, the vertex is going to be the opposite of that one. And the same as that one. So our vertex is the opposite of that one. So the opposite of -3 is 3. It's the same as this one. So that one will be 5. So you're going to tell me here 3 and 5, because this again is our x value, that's our y value. Okay? 13 is the same. All right, so on 13, we're going to do the same kind of thing we just did. So I'm going to say y is equal to x squared plus 16x. Again, I'm going to say a plus. That one will always be a plus, ladies and gentlemen. Plus a blank. Then I'm going to say minus 7. Since it has to be on the same side here, I'm going to say minus a blank. All right? So remember, you're going to have it, and then you're going to square it. So half of 16 is 8. So you can write this as x plus 8 squared. So have it. And then I'm going to tell you to square it. And I'm just going to put SQ there because I'm writing so short. And what is 8 squared? You're going to tell me 64. And you're going to tell me 64. And so we're going to have negative 7 minus 64. That is going to be 71. So our vertex form of the function, again, it's y equals, well, they already have the y equals there for us. So we're going to say x plus 8 squared minus 71. And just like I did up above, I'm going to take my vertex as the opposite of the one in parentheses, so that's negative 8. It's the same as the one outside the parentheses, so negative 71. So we're going to say negative 8 and negative 71. Okay, now remember, that's when we had two variables. All right, when they ask us to complete the square the other way, all right, like this one right here, remember, we're going to get the x squared plus and the minus 6x on one side of the equation, and then we're going to add something to both sides. So remember, on that one there, I told you we're going to take x squared minus 6x. We're going to add something here. Again, I wanted to get the x squared and the 6 by itself, so I'm going to put the negative 15 over on this side. But now, since we only have one variable, I can put plus a blank there. All right, notice the difference. Okay, so on this one here, I'm going to do the same exact thing I just did up there. I'm going to take, and I'm going to take half of negative 6. What is half of negative 6? You're going to tell me negative 3. And remember, that's where we're going to put a squared. But again, I'm going to take that negative 3 and I'm going to square it. So negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. That's why that's always positive. And then since we're doing it on both sides of the equal sign, not the same side of the equal sign, I'm going to put a plus 9 on that one there also. Okay? So now we have x minus 3 quantity squared is equal to negative 15 plus 9 is negative 6. So now remember, we're solving now for x. So to get rid of a square, we're going to square root it. So I'm going to have x minus 3 is equal to the square root of negative 6. So now what did I just tell you, ladies and gentlemen? When I see a negative under the radical, I'm going to write this as x minus 3 is equal to I root 6. Okay, because remember, I is equal to the square root of negative 1. So now we're not done here, because notice we have two answers there. So I'm going to bring that negative 3 over to the other side to get x by itself. Remember, I told you we're going to put that in front. So again, we should have had the plus or minus there. That's my bad. So if I do that, I put it in front, I'm going to have x plus or minus I root 6. So again, here, You have to put it both because, again, it didn't say round or anything. So one of our answers is going to be 3 plus I root 6. Our other answer is 3 minus I root 6. Okay, 15 is the same. Okay, so we're going to do the same thing as we just did there. So x squared minus 10x. I'm going to add a blank. I move the 31 over to the other side, so it becomes negative 31. And I'm going to add a blank. All right? So remember, half of negative 10 is minus 5. So I'm going to have x minus 5 squared. And then I'm going to take that negative 5 and I'm going to square it. So that gives me a plus 25, which we expected. Plus 25 as we expected. So x minus 5 squared is equal to negative 6. It would have been nice to have different numbers there, but oh well. So now I have x minus 5. Again, we're going to undo the square, so that means we're going to do a square root. Okay, what do you see? See negative under the radical. X minus 5 is equal to plus or minus. Again, remember, it has to be in front of the radical, ladies and gentlemen. I root 6. Now I'm going to take that 5 and move it over. So I'm going to have 5 plus or minus I root 6. So since they have two blanks there, again, you're going to have to write 5 plus I root 6 and 5 minus I root 6. Okay, excuse me. Number 16 says solve by factoring. All right, so again, we're going to do the same kind of thing. I see an x. And I see an x. Again, the coefficient of 1. Sometimes it won't work, but I'll tell you, most of the ones around here, when it tells us to do it by factoring, it does work. So I look at the middle term, the last term, it's minus, so 1's plus, 1's minus. Again, we're going to set that equal to 0. What are factors of 21? 7 and 3. So if I have 7 and 3, where am I going to place them? So I have a plus 4, plus 7, minus 3. So by the zero product property again, x is equal to negative 7, or x is equal to positive 3. Always think, ladies and gentlemen, the easiest way to do it is if it's positive up in the parentheses, your answer has to be negative and vice versa. So on this one here, our answers were negative 7 and positive 3. Okay, we're going to do the same thing on the next one. It looks like on the next 3. So let's see. I have a w this time. So I have w squared minus 2w. Oh, on this one here, oh, look what they did. We have to move that 15 over so we can set it over equal to 0. So I'm going to have to, it's positive on that side. When I move it over to the other side, it's going to become negative. I'm going to set that equal to 0. So now we can do this. Again, that's negative, so I know one has to be positive. One has to be negative. And let's see, what are factors of 15? 3 and 5. So where am I going to place the 5 and the 3? So it becomes negative 2, negative 5, positive 3. And by the zero product property, I just told you it's the opposite of them, what's in parentheses. So it's negative 3, because negative 3 plus 3 equals 0, ladies and gentlemen. And then I have positive 5. So again, I'm going to put negative 3 and positive 5. I'm sure on these ones here, it doesn't matter which order you put it in. Okay. Number 18. Okay, we're going to do what we just did up above. So I'm going to move that 72 over. So that'll give me a minus 72 is equal to 0. I have that minus there. So that means one's positive, one's negative. What are factors of 72? That when I add them, give me a negative v, negative 1, because remember, it's a 1 there, understood? So that'd be minus 9 plus 8. So our v is going to be negative 8, or v is equal to negative 9. I mean, positive 9, sorry. Getting tired. So I'm going to have negative 8, positive 9. All right, 19 is probably one of the hardest problems on the test, but we should be able to do this. Now remember, when it says to find the zeros of h of x equals 2x squared minus 7x minus 30, we're setting that equal to 0. And again, we're finding the x-intercept, so to speak. So remember on this one here, we don't have a coefficient of 1 on the first one there. So remember, I kind of showed you how to do this. So I'm going to take the first term and the last term, and I'm going to multiply them. And I'm going to put it in this top part of the x. That'll give me negative 60x squared. I take the middle term, and I'm going to put that down there. So that'll be minus 7x. Now you're going to ask yourself, what are factors that when I multiply them give me negative 60? Yeah, when I add them, give me negative 7. All right? So what times what equals 60? So just think that off to the side there. What times what equals 60? Well, let's see, 20 times 3, right? Let's see what else. 60 times 1, 30 times 2. None of those, even when I try to add them, sound like they're even going to be close. Let's see, what else do I have? Well, how about 12 times 5? 12 times 5 equals 60 also, right? Oh, hey, look, that one works. So let's see. So which one am I going to make negative, the 12 or the 5? Negative 12x and 5x. So remember, after that here, I'm going to have to kind of go into this question part here. I'm sorry. Remember here, we did the box. And again, I told you to take the first term and the last term and put it in the box somewhere. So I have 2x squared and I have minus 30. And then we're going to take our two middle terms and put in the other diagonal. So I'll have 12x and I'll have 5x. And now we're going to factor those boxes. What's in common in this column here, ladies and gentlemen? What is common in this column? Well, you'd tell me 2x. All right, 2x times what? Because now I'm just looking at that box equals 2x squared. It's an x. 2x times what gives me negative 12x, and you would tell me negative 6, right? And then x times what gives me 5x? You're going to tell me x times 5 is 5x. And then as a check, ladies and gentlemen, does negative 6 times 5 equal negative 30? And you would tell me yes. So let's see here. I'm going to go off to this side here. So we're going to say that x minus 6 times 2x minus 5 is equal to 0. So this one here is easy because, again, I told you it's just the opposite of it. So x is going to equal 6. On this one here, just do a little work, ladies and gentlemen. Set it equal to 0. 2x minus 5 is equal to 0, and solve that. So I'll get 2x Again, I'm going to get the number by itself. So when I bring that 5 over, it becomes positive. And now I'm going to divide both sides by 2. So I'll get that x is equal to 5 halves. Sorry. So that's all part of the problem up here. And it's not. So you're going to tell me, and again, I think you can leave it in fraction form. If you put 2.5, I'm pretty sure to accept it. I would have to look just to make sure. So if we have something like that again, we'll do the same thing. So let's see here. Number 20, oh, it looks like one of the problems we had at the beginning. So I'm going to take that x squared, and I'm going to move it over to the other side. So that'll give us 3x squared plus 27 is equal to 0. All right. Let's see, I can say 3x squared is equal to negative 27. I'm going to divide by 3. X squared is equal to negative 9. Then I'm going to get x is equal to plus or minus the square root of negative 9. Oh, now on this one here, you know there should be an I, just like I showed you on the first one there. So I don't see an I as part of my 3 here, so I know this one, and this one here don't work. The only one it can be, ladies and gentlemen, is that one right there. All right, find the square root of negative 162. So again, I see that there. I know I'm going to have an I. Remember, I is equal to the square root of negative 1, so we can pull that out. So now what I have left is 162. So 162, let's see, what are factors of 162? Well, that'd be 81 and 2. If I take the square root of those, do I know either one of those? Yeah, square root of 81 is 9. So again, I have 9. I have a square root. So this time here, again, it has to be in the between them. So that would be our answer. All right, 22 says using the quadratic formula. I'm almost done. Well, so on this one here, I'm going to go. I already told you what the quadratic formula was, so I'm not going to redo that. So I know that x is equal to negative b, so it's negative 6, plus or minus the square root of b squared, so 6 squared, minus 4 times negative 2 times negative 7. So 4ac, all of that over 2 times negative 2. All right. Now I'm going to take this up here just so I have some room. You'll see why here in a second. So if I do that, I'll get negative 6 plus or minus. Again, we could have done the discriminant first and seen that we're going to have 2 imaginary solutions because I have 36 minus 56. Again, that is going to be all over negative 4. All right, so let me see. I'm going to have to move that down a little because my face will get in the way. So on that one there, if I do this, then I'm going to get negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 20. All of that over negative 4. So remember, that's going to give me an I, but remember the square root of 20 you can write as the square root of 4 times the square root of 5. The square root of 4 is 2, so you can write that as 2 root 5. So now we're going to have negative 6 plus or minus 2 root 5 over negative 2. All right, so now here's the big thing that they did. All right, I kind of factored out a negative 2 because all that does is it flips the sign on the top. But on the answer that they gave, they just factored out a 2 on the top. So if we factor out a 2 on the top, you're left with negative 3, all right, plus or minus I root 5. Remember, we can factor it out here. We can't factor what's underneath the radical sign. All right, and excuse me, that was 4 there. So then I'd have 2 times negative 2 here. So what they did is they took this, and then they made their answer negative 3 plus I root 5 over negative 2, and negative 3 minus I root 5 over negative 2. Again, that's what they wrote. I'm not sure. I would look at it if you did 3 minus I root 5 over 2. I think it would work. Again, I'll check for you guys. All right. Let's see, number 23. Okay, now we're starting to get back to some easy ones again. So I'm going to say that is what? Excuse me. 4x squared is equal to, I'm going to subtract the 52. So that'll be negative 48. All right. If I divide by 4, I'll get x squared is equal to negative 12. So remember, so that'll give me x is equal to solve it, I'm going to take the square root plus or minus the square root of negative 12. The negative underneath tells me I have an I, right? So the square root of 12, remember that one we can write as the square root of 4 times the square root of 3. The square root of 4 is 2, so we'll have the 3 there. So again, I'm going to put the I in between. So I'm going to have 2I root 3. So you're going to tell me x is equal to 2I root 3 and negative 2I root 3. Okay, number 24 is another one where we do it by graphing. All right, so I went ahead and on both of them, again, set everything over to one side and set it equal to 0. On this one here, the 5x squared is negative, so I moved everything over here. So that one, now when I moved it, it became plus. This one here, when I moved it over, became a plus. So on this one here, that'll give me 5x squared plus x squared is 6x squared. Negative, well, the negative 9x becomes positive, so 2x plus 9x is equal to 11x. And then I have the minus 8. And again, since I'm solving it by graphing, I'm going to set it equal to 0. Okay? And they say round to the nearest hundredth. So again, use the correct rules of rounding. I did it for you again. I just went ahead and put them in. So that's one less thing I don't have to spend a lot of time on. So there's that one right there. Again, this is the Desmos calculator you guys are going to use on the test. So on both of these, it should work really nice. So again, click on where it crosses the x-axis. Click on it, and then use your rules of rounding. So according to our rules of rounding, we should say to the nearest hundredth, she said. So that would be x is equal to negative 2.39. And then the other one is 0.558. So the 8's going to make that 5 go up 1. So you should have 0.56. All right. So the graphing ones are pretty easy. You can always check the other ones if you want by graphing. All right. So let's go back. We're almost done. 5 more problems. Write the expression 2 minus 3i plus 5i times 1 minus 3i as a complex number in standard form. Remember, standard form means a plus bi. So whatever numbers I have that don't have an I attached to them, they go right in front. So on this one here, I'm going to have 2 minus 3i. Remember, on this one here, I am going to distribute that 5i through the parentheses. So I'll have 2 minus 3i plus 5i minus 5 times 3 is 15. I times I is I squared. But I squared, I told you earlier, is equal to -1. So that would give us 2 minus 3i plus 15 plus 5i, excuse me. And then I would have minus 15 times -1. Well, negative times a negative is a positive. So I'll get 2 minus 3i plus 5i plus 15. Put the whole numbers together. That's 17. Put the two i's together. That'll be plus 2i. So your answer is 17 plus 2i. 26 is just the same as that one was there. So we're going to do 5i, 5 minus 8i, excuse me. I'm going to take and distribute that -2 through the parentheses. That'll give me minus 4i. Negative times a negative is a positive, so that'll be plus 6i squared. But again, I just told you that I squared is equal to -1. So that's just going to change the sign of that one there. So that means we're going to have 5 minus 8i minus 4i minus 6. Put the whole numbers together. That's -1. Put the i's together. Minus 12i. And that's where you're going to put some -1 minus 12i. Okay, remember on this one here, 27, we're going to FOIL. So first terms are 4 times 2. That's going to give us 8, right? Outside terms are minus 20i. Inside terms are plus 2i. And last terms, so I did FOIL. Positive times a negative is a negative 5i squared. But again, I squared is equal to what? -1. So I'll have 8 minus 20i plus 2i plus 5. So my answer will be 13 minus 18i. So that's that answer. Okay, 26 is a pretty simple one because remember, the real parts equal the real parts, the imaginary parts equal the imaginary parts. So we can say that -12 is equal to 3x. So negative 12 is equal to 3x. If I divide both sides by 3, let me make it look like a better 3, then I'll get that x is equal to negative 4. And the real parts equal the real parts, the imaginary parts equal the imaginary parts. So I can say that 8yi is equal to negative I. So on this one here, I'm going to divide both sides because I'm going to get y by itself. I'm going to do 8i and 8i. So remember, I divided by I becomes a 1. So what we're going to get is negative 1/8. So you're going to put negative 1/8 right there. All right, last two, they're kind of easy, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show you some things to do. First of all, remember, if it is greater than or less than, it's a dashed line. If it's greater than or equal to or less than or equal to, it's a solid line. So without even doing a single thing right now, we just eliminated two problems there, all right? So the other ones, let's kind of check. And I went ahead and I did, I just looked at this one first, all right? And you'll see kind of why. Remember, to find the vertex or the axis of symmetry, you're going to take that x is equal to negative b over 2a. All right. So on this one here, remember our a is equal to 1, our b is equal to negative 2, and our c is equal to 1. All right. So if I look at that, well, they both have a y-intercept of 1, right? So I'm still doing the right thing. So if I do that, I'll get that I have negative 2. Again, I have a negative 2 all over 2 times 1. So our x would be at 1, right? So if you think about it, our axis of symmetry on this one right here would be right here. But it doesn't look like it's right there because it would be right here, right? So since it's not the axis of symmetry on this one right here, by the process of elimination, what I just did for you, we know it's that one there. You can always graph these too, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Because if you use the sign and you can see that you have that on Desmos, it's going to fill it in right away for you, all right? So last one here, let me show you how easy that one was, okay? And again, because you might get one that is just as easy, all right? So if we look here, it looks like they are going by, they're going by 2s, so that's not going to be right. So, all right, let's go ahead and still do it. Well, I'm going to be able to eliminate this one and this one right away, right? So let's see here. Which one should we start at? Well, let's go ahead and do this one. If it doesn't work for this one, it looks like our axis of symmetry should be at negative 2, right? So our x is equal to negative b over 2a, all right, which in this case would be negative 8 over 2 times 2, which would be negative 8 divided by 4, which would be negative 2. So our axis of symmetry is negative, let's see, oh, sorry, I actually did do this one, my bad. All right. So if I did that one there, sorry, and I'm too tired to edit this, so I would have done that one there. And you see that that does work. So that one is our answer. All right. So that's -2. And that's where our axis of symmetry was. So I didn't have to do a lot of work on this, ladies and gentlemen. All right. I think when I did it on the when I was doing it before I did it, I didn't realize that these are going by 2's. So that's my bad right there. Okay. So that's it. Good luck, ladies and gentlemen. You know, I always sincerely mean that. All right. Look at this as you're doing your test.